Hey guys, we're live. It's Ted Bogert with the Ted Show. Very, very excited to have this young man on the show, Justin Sandler.
Yes,
I'm doing
sir.
that right today, if it kills me. He's got a great background. I'm excited about this topic because, as you guys know, I know nothing about most topics, but invisible risk. We had a lot of people go, I knew about that topic and kind of are very excited to talk about what that is. So welcome to the show, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm honored.
Very excited. And I want everybody to know that Justin's website is scrolling across the bottom if you want to check it out. We're going to learn more about exactly. Yeah, you got to have the moves.
It's like in the YouTube video. Click the link below.
I don't know. Yeah, okay. I don't even want to try. I'll embarrass everyone. But I've got to know what the website's about at some point. We'll get to that. And we'll get to the name that you have up, all sorts of good stuff. But let's start with origin. Tell them a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. So I'm from Chicago, not from here. I've lived here 6 years. I came here after school, started in restaurants, didn't do very well. I was great at the sales customer service part, not so good at the multitasking part. So fun fact about me, I'm terrible at that.
Me too.
After that, I got into enterprise, which I want to give a quick shout out to Bob Berg. I know that he's going to be on your show. And when I read Endless Referrals, it changed me from thinking about sales as who's the best trickster to basically who can add the most value and live in the most integrity and honesty. And that really changed my life. I haven't really told him that. I kind of know him formally a little bit on Instagram and everything. So
you should come on when the show on Thursday, I believe he's coming on. Make sure you, if you can, pop on and tell him, because his books really are life changing.
They are.
His approach is so unique, and I did not know that. I wondered why you asked me about him. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of him. So I told him I'd give him a shout out. So here's his shout out. But yeah, so I basically got into real estate after enterprise, thinking, okay, well, I started to feel better about sales and got good at it. So I thought, why don't I just do this for myself for commission instead of a lower salary? And I struggled in the beginning, like most people.
Sure.
Real estate's very, very, very tough. Was at Keller Williams, didn't do very well, lost all my money, went to David Weekley Homes, started to get the hang of it, left there, went to KB Home. And about 2 years ago, things started to really click. And I basically really started studying and reading and prepping and learning how this all worked. And that's kind of that. And then from real estate, I went into starting my own business on January 1st of this past year. And that kind of
2020?
Yep, 2020, January 1st.
Congratulations. I'm sure you didn't expect 2020 to be like this in the scheme of things.
No, I didn't. And I didn't even expect to start my own business that quickly. I really thought it was kind of going to be a year out. But then something kind of really pushed me over that ledge, and I realized that I had to go for it. So,
all right. So you leave real estate sales or real estate, and that can be a very lucrative market. We have a lot of realtors on here, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. What was the reason behind what was the one thing, or did you have one thing where you're like, all right, I can finally do this. This part's not for me, but now I want to do my own thing. What was the change where you decided, all right, January 1st, this is it. It's all about Justin and what Justin wants to give to the world. Yeah.
So great question. And this is kind of going to be the segue into the invisible risk. So maybe I'll get to answer a couple of your questions at once.
Good.
But so in late October of last year, and I think we know a lot of the same people, a lot of real estate people we're friends with. So they may know some of this story already, but I went to Barcelona. This was something that was kind of on my checklist that I was really, really excited about. And I kind of started to learn more about the fact that people are really out there living life on their own terms, even sometimes just making $100,000 a year writing a blog, And so I started to become aware of the fact that there's more than one way to get where you want to go. And when I came back, so I was in new home sales and I loved it, but it's not very vacation friendly or free time friendly. And I didn't want to really do something like that once a year. And I started to feel kind of confined in my little office, which we're not really allowed to leave. And that felt kind of constraining my personality. And so to get to the invisible risk part, which is really what pushed me over the edge, I one night after working out, I was on the top of my my apartment building, and I filmed this Instagram video, which I ended up calling Invisible Risk. And like most Instagram videos I do, I had no clue what I was going to talk about. It's just kind of like something comes up in me that wants to say something, and I share. And so what I ended up saying in the video, which has been kind of a talking point for me, is we all see the risk of putting ourselves out there. And, you know, what if it doesn't work out? What if we lose our money? What if we're embarrassed? You know, what if this doesn't go how we want to go? And then we kind of are just back to square one. And we all feel that risk. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons we don't go for what we want, right? That fear of failure and all of the kind of negative repercussions. But what I started to think about is, let's say that you're on a path that you don't want to be on, that's leading where you don't want to be. Not only is that risky, but you're actually guaranteed to fail, because you're guaranteed to go where you don't want to go. And so I kind of started looking at that and thinking, wow, this is kind of a blind spot that we have, where yes, going for that thing you want might be risky, but we're not seeing the risk of continuing on the path we're on, which is sometimes a lot greater. And just to add to that briefly, because I think this is a big point for me. I come from a lot of health struggles, and that's kind of part of my story and the way I look at life. And I think, let's just say we're 40 years old, take an easy number. And so we think we're going to live to 80. And so we think we have 40 more years. And so we kind of calculate our life based on those 40 years. And we kind of plan out what it is we're going to do or not do or get to later based on that, right? But the danger or the kind of additional risk comes in where, what if you have 40 months or 40 days or 40 seconds? You know, you really don't know that. So we're calculating on this assumption that if we're wrong, and if we think we're going to start living in 12 months and really we had, 4, it becomes very, very risky. And I think it's a blind spot. So I like talking to people about this, because I really think we have to live intentionally and live for what we want now, not just with that assumption and that hope that we'll get it later.
So invisible risk, if I'm hearing you, is the risk you take by staying in the comfort zone or staying in the modality or whatever you're doing. You're staying in that same spot.
Yeah.
And the invisible people don't look at that as a risk. So invisible risk makes complete sense to me. And they don't look at it because that's their comfort zone. They know it. They know the devil they're dancing with, or whatever that phrase is. And so what you're saying is people really need to evaluate that when they're thinking about making that leap, making that change, taking that job, starting that business, whatever it is. They need to realize that there's risk in staying where they're at.
Yes, and just kind of realizing, I love watching, Tim Ferriss and Brene Brown and and Louis Hose and Jay Shetty and all these interesting people. And people are always talking about they don't want to address their fear, they don't want to have that difficult conversation or be their real selves or whatever it is that's kind of the topic of the moment. But there's always this kind of invisible part where it's like, okay, well, what is your alternative? Because we kind of have two choices. You're either going to address it or not, but understand that if you don't go for what you want or you don't address what you need to, you're choosing that misery, and you're choosing that dissatisfaction. And as we know from the sales and real estate worlds, we make decisions when our dissatisfaction is high enough. So at some point you kind of have to decide, okay, well, I'm tired of it being this way and I have two choices. And so maybe I should just go for what I want, because you have to look at what are the choices,
Well, you have, I feel like I think there's a lot of people, especially since the whole pandemic, that are really at that point where they're evaluating what their invisible risk is. They're evaluating, why am I in this job? Or I just got furloughed from my job I've been at for 30 years. What am I doing with my life? How much time do I have? What's happening? So I feel like there's a positive that happened with the pandemic about what you're talking about. Most of the people that come on and talk about their invisible risk, I'm going to continue to use that term because I like it.
You're using it.
I love it. Is because I think people say, I'd love to take an opportunity, Ted, I'd love to do this or that, health insurance, my rent, my mortgage, my lifestyle. And for a lot of people, they would prefer to stay in, again, what they know versus going out to the great unknown. Or it's very difficult, I think, for people to make that leap. But pandemic has helped.
Yeah, or forced.
Correct. I think you're right. I think people get forced into it, but I think a lot of people are hearing you, or will hear you when they watch it later, and will say, you know what, he's right, but I don't know what the next step is. So what did you do next step to go, all right, I'm going to get out of this comfort zone. I'm going to do something different.
Yeah. A couple of things. And that's a great question, because I think that's something that people really, really do struggle with. It's like, okay, well, how do I go for my dreams? That sounds so easy, but how do you do it? Something that Brian Tracy says, I'm a huge Brian Tracy fan. I'm sure you're familiar with him. He always says that it's okay if you don't know everything of your whole plan, but you're always going to know the next step. And I found that that's true. And so I guess I would say to people, you don't have to know exactly how the whole thing is going to go to take the next step. And once you do take that next step, you'll know the next one after that. So it's kind of throwing yourself out into the abyss, which is scary. But again, understanding that if you don't do that, you have to live with the fact that you might have 3 years to live and you're thinking you have 40, and you're calculating on that. And that's a scary thought, So I think feeling that dissatisfaction enough to act, understanding that you'll always know the next step. You don't always have to know everything to start. And I think understanding something that helps me is kind of success, I think, is a little bit like the curve of a hockey stick, or like the Nike curve, where in the beginning, it's hard for us to see results right away, and we think that we're failing. But like a farmer planting his crop would never yell at the crop after a week, that nothing is happening. So we kind of have to have a little bit of faith that if we're doing the things we should be, we might be on that beginning of the success curve where we might not kind of see it yet, but taking that pressure off the beginning. Everybody wants to make a YouTube channel and do one video that they prepared forever for, and it blows up. And life's not really that way. In the beginning, it might not look like things are happening, but that doesn't mean that they're not, because all successful people kind of went through that beginning as well. So understanding that that's a normal fear, and that all successful people had that fear. It's not just you as a weak person,
Agreed. I think people, the first step, people spend, in my opinion, way too much time preparing for the first step.
Yeah.
Because that will completely mess your mind up and convince you 1,000 times over not to take the first step. Yep. So people will say, well, what's your 5-year plan? I just did a joking meme about this. I pulled it from some site. What are those? Nobody in 2015, their 5-year plan. How's that working out for you? I think that people get so caught up in, I have to have it perfect. It has to be this moment. I've got to know every step. And I agree 100% with you. You don't. You really don't, because guess what? There are going to be things that you have no idea how you're going to handle, because you don't know what the challenges are going to be. So you have to take the first step. The first step also doesn't have to be monumental. I was coaching someone, and they were so adamant about, you mentioned the YouTube channel, a YouTube video. The video had to be perfect. I go, so they filmed it. They spent 6 months and then they asked my opinion. It was horrible. And the reason it was horrible is because you could tell the person was stressed out, speaking off cue cards or whatever was going up and down the screen. And it didn't even emote the message that they were trying to get out there. And I said, see, you've just wasted 6 months trying to be perfect on your first step, and your first step isn't perfect. And I think people get really caught up in that, the first step.
No, you're right. And something I want to share, kind of to be transparent with people, because I think sometimes when we post on social media, people see our best selves. And so sometimes it's hard to communicate to people your struggles, even if you do put it in some of the posts. I don't know if people really see it. And so to kind of be transparent with people, I had no clue what I was doing. Like when I put in my work resignation, I had no clue what I was doing. The only thing I knew was that I wanted to help people to live the life they really wanted to be living, because I felt like we're taking a risk and not going for it. And I didn't know what that looked like. I started doing some real estate referrals. And then, I paid my parents back $8,000 thinking I would do these open houses and pass off the leads and get it back quickly. And then coronavirus happened. And so, I got kind of stuck, and I thought I was going to take, 8-9 months to figure all this out. But I didn't know what a life coach was. I didn't know if that was a real thing. I had a lot of negative stigma about it. I thought it was something little 17-year-olds on Instagram do. I didn't know if it was real. And I just had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know where they got clients, what they did, if there was even a demand at all. And I kind of just kept taking the next step. And even with these podcast things, I had no clue that I was going to do things like this, but people started reaching out. And then I started thinking, oh, this is kind of cool, and it's a cool positioning thing, and maybe I can do more of it. And so I didn't know any of this when I started. I just kind of kept taking action and thinking and focusing and stumbling along. So you don't have to know everything right away, but you kind of have to bet on yourself. You kind of have to bet aggressively on yourself.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a great point. You don't know, guys. We don't know our next step. Anybody who tells you they know it, they may know it in their mind and they've got their 5-year plan, but I can tell you that second step is not going to be what they expected. It's going to be completely different. So is the third, probably the 100th. It changes, it morphs, it develops, and then things come up, and then positive things and opportunities. It's not all negative. You just have to be ready to be able to be flexible enough to make the change. I have people that tell me I could never be on video. And I said, well, I'm technically really not on video. I'm having a conversation with Justin. We're just the two of us. Yes, I see people sending love. And yes, I had a lot of people already send love. But here's the deal. I'm focused on having a conversation with you. So if you want to do video, trust me, if I can do video, you can do video. But people get so caught up in that, well, I've got to have my video perfect, my hair. Do I need an agent? I had somebody actually ask me that. What is it? And I'm like, you just be you. The problem I found is that most people, because they have allowed the invisible risk to determine how they live their lives, they don't even know who they are. They don't know how to be them. And so that is, you have a dream, but you don't even know what you're feeling, and you don't know how to get there. And I do the exact same thing that you do. And I tell them, you just have to take that first step. You got to do it. So talk about your website, because what is that? It's completely new. I had to look 4 times to make sure. So tell us the origin of that and what's going on.
So at least with the domain itself, which is probably part of the question, I chose .xyz. I chose that because I thought it was kind of different and cool. I thought it would look kind of cool, like on a hoodie or on a piece of clothing. And fun fact, Alphabet, which is the company that owns Google, so they originally wanted abc.com, but that was owned by a BMW dealership, like an obscure one. And they wouldn't sell it to them for any type of reasonable price. I don't know the exact numbers. And so what Alphabet did was they went with an XYZ domain. So the parent company of Google, Alphabet, uses abc.xyz, and it doesn't affect search results at all. So I thought, well, that's interesting. So it's not going to affect my search results, and it's kind of differentiating and cool and self-expressive. So that's where that came from.
I love it.
And the name Just Ether. So I originally wanted only the word ether, but that was taken. As you know, whenever you start a business, you realize every single normal word is taken, which sucks. But so when I was studying Nike and these different brands, I saw that was the Greek god of victory. So I thought, okay, maybe there's a cool god that's Greek that I could choose. And ether is the Greek god of the upper air, like the air that the gods breathe. And I thought that was really cool because I felt like that's the type of life that we should be living. The only life that we should be interested in is kind of that level, that most beautiful, pure level of whatever that means for us. and ether was taken. And so I was in a Corona cigar, which I saw you had the guy on here, which is really cool. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah.
I watched the interview. And my friend was like, what about just ether? It's like Justin ether, and it looks cool aesthetically with the letters.
Yes.
So that's kind of how I came to that name.
I love it. I wondered. I couldn't. I didn't do any. I probably could have Googled it. I guess. But that's a great story. I think I love it because then that just becomes part of your mission, your passion. You've got to. It's good. I like it a lot. All right. I have to ask, what's up client-wise? Who are you? What are you working on right now? What projects are you working on? What kind of growth do you want to do next step, not 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes it's tough because you have a number of interests, and so it's like, how do you kind of prioritize or order of operations, those things? I'm really enjoying this type of thing, the shows and the podcasts. I love the process of it and hanging out and hopefully adding value. And I'm finding that it's a good kind of positioning tool in the market. And so I have kind of put more of a priority on seeking out more of it. I think that can kind of more quickly ramp up what I would like to do. I am doing one-on-one coaching. I kind of created a pretty unique product. So I'm coming from new home sales, and you're probably familiar. I mean, very, very, very high pressure. What do you write today? What are you writing tomorrow? Drive to their house, pick up the check, stay up till 12 o'clock at night to take a picture and send it to prove that you have it. So super intense. Like, results now are the only things that matter. And something interesting I was noticing in the marketplace as I was studying what other people were doing life coaching wise is I didn't really see any very fast-paced products. So most of it is kind of 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. And I'm sure there's a lot of value in that. And I think that's right for a lot of people. But I think there's at least a certain segment of people that's too long for. And I think that would include myself if I was looking for it, where I think a lot of people want answers now. And I started realizing when people are seeking out a life coach, their dissatisfaction is very, very high. Like, they've thought about this for months or years. And so it's kind of like seeking out a heart surgeon. You really want to find the best person, and you want to do it right, and you want it now. And so I created a product that's just 4 sessions long. It goes over 30 days. And I put a guarantee in it because I found that most people weren't doing any type of guarantee. And it's very, very fast paced. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm charging the same amount in 4 sessions that other people are charging in like 50 sessions. But what I'm saying is, okay, well, my price per hour is higher, but my cost is lower. Meaning I'm going to save you 11 months of your time, anxiety, stress, frustration. Let's just put this all together now. And I'm going to teach you how to run your own life as your own life coach by the end of it. And if I don't do everything that I'm saying, I'll give you all your money back. And so it's kind of like the luxury item. I only take 10 clients at a time for that. And I'm very excited because I think that's an area that I see a need that I don't see that service provided.
Well, I think the time is unique because I think that people give up a lot of time on the coaching side. I'm a big proponent of having a life/business/ whatever you want to call it coach. I think it's really important. It's kind of like having your therapist and business manager all at once, or bartender in my case. And I think it's super important for people to have someone that they can bounce things off, that can hold them accountable. I like the time frame part because the longer you draw it out, I feel like maybe I'm not making as much progress as I could be in the time that I want. So I love that. Where do you find clients? I love to ask this question about businesses, especially new ones, January 1st. How are you doing on your marketing as far as clients? How are you surviving COVID and everybody being funny about that, or being furloughed, or how are you finding new people?
Yeah. So the life coaching thing is not only January 1st new, it's like 2 or 3 months new. So it's brand new. I started there's a platform called Bark, which is kind of like Thumbtack. I don't know if you've heard of Bark, but it's on there. And you can bid on leads. And so I probably spent about close to $2,000 over the course of a month or two, bidding on leads, kind of cold call / warm call type of thing, and did a number of sessions and learned the market a little bit. But what I learned was that wasn't the exact market that I wanted to be in, because what I was coming from of, you know, I have to sell the person the house in 2 or 3 hours on the first time, or I'm never going to get another chance. So the service that I'm used to providing is like extremely focused and fast. And I felt like there was a need for something like that in the market. So what I'm doing marketing wise now, part of it is shows like this, which I'm really excited about. Part of it is really, really focusing on Google reviews and doing some things for free to kind of continue to build that up. I think people looking for a premium service first look at the Google reviews, and then they look at the website, and then they kind of make the decision. So if I'm going to charge that, I have to really, really focus on that. And then after I have a little more reviews, I'm starting to go into like Google AdWords, Facebook ads, with a pretty specific target in mind of who I'm looking for. And so I figure even if I convert at low numbers, I will still more than make it back with the price that I'm asking, because I don't need many people to do it. So that's kind of my plan right now. I'm taking a little more time to position, and then the marketing dollars will go further once I start doing those.
Love that. All right. If I say the word hero to you, who comes to mind?
Maybe it's a weird answer, but I guess God.
I love it. That's not a weird answer at all. Why?
Yeah. I think maybe, I mean, I guess it just came to my mind, so it's kind of like instant. I don't know. But I guess if I had to answer, I would be dead a long time ago if it wasn't for God. Like I've been through a lot of really, really, really scary things. My morning routine every day, there's 3 things that I say. Well, I do like my affirmations, but I also, part of it is I say, thank you, God, that I'm not in jail. Thank you, God, that I'm not in the hospital. Thank you, God, that I'm alive. And I say this sometimes I do everything at night. Sometimes I miss it, but at least 1 to 2 times a day, it's part of my routine. And I really believe that, you know, sometimes many times a day, it's like, wow, like everything that I'm experiencing now is something that I wouldn't have gotten to experience. And so I'm very kind of aware of the fragility of life, which is, I think, one of the reasons my approach to everything is so much like, let's do it now.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's why, because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't get to be having this talk with you.
I love that. Thank you for the honesty. I'm starting to throw questions out to guests that I haven't prepped them for. Not that I prep you guys for questions anyway, but
yeah.
I think people are looking for some sort of guidance and inspiration. So that question tends to be powerful for the audience. Yeah. All right. So best way to reach you, Justin, how can they reach you if they're interested in learning more, want to know about you? What's the best way?
Yeah, definitely. So my website is a great way, which it looks like is below here, which is super cool. Very fancy. www.justether, JUSTAETHER.xyz. I almost said .com. You could shoot me a text or call 407-967-8391. And anybody that maybe if they have a show and they'd like me to be part of it, I'd be happy to be part if they would like. If they'd like to do a free session, just so I can get a little more practice, hopefully add value to them, I'd be happy to. And you know, maybe they become a paid client, but it's whatever's best for them.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your story. That was a really important topic. I think people are struggling with that a lot, trying to make the right decision. And you definitely gave them some good words of encouragement and some steps. I appreciate that. All right, Justin Sandler, thank you so much for being on the show. You were a joy, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You guys have a great day. We'll be back. We've got a bunch of shows today. Reach out to Justin. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.